I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. First thing in there is that pledge of flag. If Shauna would please rise.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, give us wisdom as we conduct this meeting and conduct this order of business for the county. Let us be passionate in what our endeavors are and try to do the things that with the land that you would see appealing to you. We are just servants here on this earth for a short period of time, and we take care of the resources on this earth while we're here. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. A little formality, I'll just go through it real quick, to start the meeting. First, I would like to have our secretary call a roll call on the planning commission members.
Thank you. Wayne Freiberg here. Jim Day. Scott Lana. Shauna Humphreys.
Here.
Peter Ford here. Adam Ford. John Mishler here. Brad Schultz seat is vacant. And Jeff Souter. We expect later. Okay.
How many are present?
Appears that we have 1, 2, 3, 4.
So we're not able to have a quorum. We won't be able to conduct business without the fifth one. On behalf of the board, I would like to welcome everyone to the April 2nd meeting of the Washington County Planning Commission. Everyone who appears before the Planning Commission is entitled to a legal right of due process. Therefore, everyone present who wants to be will be given a chance to speak. We will ask that when you are called upon to speak, that you will state your name, address for the record. With that, move on. And minutes. We can't approve the minutes, and there should we hold off until.
Yeah, I don't think you can.
Yeah, we'll hold off on the minutes. Old business, committee report, subdivision. Jeff is not here. I don't have any. Thank you.
Okay. First of all, I don't really need to update you guys because you were there for the most part at the Ag zoning meeting. One of the things I do have, we talked about putting the point system instead of having yard setbacks and acreage sizes and things like that, that we talked about using the IDEM regulations as a starting point and then the point system in conjunction with that. I started putting that IDEM language in there, working on the point system to kind of capture all the things that we talked about, answer the new mission statement, things like that. And I did not bring handouts, mostly because I thought it would be, I thought it would be the entire committee, and I don't want. It is such a draft. I didn't want a printed piece of paper in someone's hand that would become a concern when it's just the draft. So if it's all right with you all, I probably will not be providing maybe just a bulleted handout in the future, some ideas or major decisions that you've all made, but I just don't want everybody stirred up before it's time. I do not have the maps because I have not been able to get a hold of Jason Cockrell to get the data.
You want to join him on that?
Yeah, well,
We had a
Hey,
discussion before. I was like,
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm going to do. I can't get the data. I can't tell you what 750 feet from the residences look like till I have the residences. Traditionally, in most counties, it's the surveyor that holds that data. Is that not the case here?
No, tell me exactly.
What kind of data?
Yeah, we're not sure what data.
I need the GIS data that houses the parcels and the resident locations. Like, so for example, whoever the GIS person, the map person is in your courthouse, that's who I need to talk to. Or if you have a company that does that,
Didn't you think that was Sandy Hortonberry?
No, she's got Think Map. She has Think Map. But she doesn't have the data of,
Company did all the work.
well, it's a photometry.
Pictometry.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that was done through a contract through the assessor's office.
yes.
But I think the surveyor has
So
access.
they just have the aerial,
That's a flyover aerial.
it's not.
That should be the data. I think both have it.
okay, I just need somebody that knows enough that I can say, I want you to export an ArcView shapefile of your parcel and resident data, and them to know what language I'm speaking.
Well,
Talk to the surveyor.
When he gets here, let's talk to the surveyor.
I think that,
I didn't realize that was Jeff.
I think that both of them have it, but they've been going over this review, and I think that Jason's got it, or he's got to give you a report tomorrow, doesn't he, on the property tax impact?
Is he on the agenda, Tom, do you remember, for the commissioners meeting, Jason?
I think at the last meeting,
I didn't get a look at my packet today.
I think at the last meeting, he was asked to give an impact on property tax.
Sometimes, like, I know, they usually counties hire, like, not the people that do the flyover mapping, but they usually hire, like, the name escapes me. They usually hire a company that does that for a living. They come into a county, they set up all the GIS stuff, they install it on all the computers, they train the folks on how to use it.
There is a thing back.
And then there's usually like one person in the whole courthouse, and it's usually the surveyor that knows how to move data in and out. That's the person I need. So should I just ask Jeff?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And I have his email, so I'll just go ahead and shoot him an email, probably first thing in the morning. And if not, if he doesn't know, then hopefully he can continue to ask at the courthouse till he gets meetings.
Yeah.
Because we already had this discussion. I've got, it's not as new of an aerial as what you've got, which if you can get me that, I'll use it. But I've got an older aerial pulled in. I've got all the roads pulled in. I have the karst data, the CFO data. I've got your data entered, where John had identified all of the farms that most of them were not on items list. A couple of them were, but at any rate, so the map that John gave me, the karst map's in there. The watershed code map is in there, so that I'm starting to pull the data together, but the main map that you guys need to see is the one that identifies how that impacts residences, and that's why I need the...
You may want to show Sean that map, because there may be something I've missed. You're pretty familiar with most of the poultry operations, aren't you, where they're at?
Well, I can take a look at it.
Okay.
Because, I mean, I'm trying to, I think I've got the bulk of them, but, you know, but actually, most of them are item regulated.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. There's probably
There's probably,
half. Half were unregulated and half were regulated.
The three barn turkey barns won't be regulated.
no,
So,
there's only a half dozen rows for harvest, so
Yes.
about that. What about Purdue, and how many
Yeah,
turkeys?
no, I'm not sure about Purdue. I mean, I can think about 3, 4 on the top of my head. Maybe
Yeah.
there's probably more, a lot more than
well, and that's what I think as we go forward, and we had talked about this a little bit too, I've tried to, for example, on the sinkhole data that comes from the USGS topo maps, they're just not anywhere near accurate. You know, like it might be 100 foot off, or there may not be, you know, it might be in the middle of a building where they're showing a sinkhole. And if I can see it on the map, I try to true it up. And as we go forward at each of our committee meetings, at each of our APC meetings, if there's data that doesn't make sense, like when we get the residence data pulled in, if you know, oh, well, it shows up here as a residence, but that's a trailer that nobody lives in, things like that, I'm going to really count on you guys to help me true up some of that data. And as we go forward with what you have, once we have everything together, we'll be able to say, okay, you know, yeah, I know there's 2 farms right down the road from me and things like that.
I think what you're going to find out with the Cinco data and stuff, we have to identify a region in there. And it's going to be like ID regulation, where we're going to have to do a site-specific review.
And that's what, I have the region pulled in.
Yeah.
where it'll show, you know, so for example, that's one of the things on my list for our next Ag Committee meeting is there a special scoring system for that karst region? And maybe it's just a couple questions that only pertain to them, but that's some kind of, you know, that's kind of the things we need to.
Well, there's so many irregularities with the karst system that that's the reason I didn't put their language in, that it was site specific, you know.
Well, and with the USGS maps, you know, those were made in the 80s. I mean, you know, think about how many holes have either opened up or, you know, have another bridge is going over it and it's growing grass now and you can't see it, you know, things like that. So, the other thing was, and I wanted to ask the whole board, the next item that I wanted to go over, Max, we talked about the non-conforming use issue. And I just kind of wanted everybody to be thinking about their feelings on that. The idea being, whether it's residences or farms or any non-conforming use, going forward, do you want to put a clause in that says, you know, you're guaranteed as long as you maintain the setbacks at the time, or, you know, whether you want to try to offer a guarantee and how far you want that guarantee to go for a non-conforming use. That's kind of what I wanted everybody to start thinking about, because that's going to be a huge issue that's going to come up again and again, and it does not have to be answered today, but also I don't think that that's a kind of thing I want people to answer immediately. I want you to think about how that impacts your land use process as you go. If your goal is to clean up how things happen in the zone, then maybe you don't say, sure, everybody that's there now can be there that way forever. You know, I'm not sure. Maybe that is, you know, maybe you want to ensure that Shauna can put, you know, another barn up, even if the new regulations impact that. I just want everybody to be thinking where they
So you're
stand.
talking about like the ones that are kind of grandfathered currently, but then all of a sudden, so they're non-conforming use.
Going
How do we
forward.
do that?
And you wouldn't necessarily go, I mean, in no way, nobody's interested in saying, you know, if you create it, if you say, you know, I'm trying to think of something, all mailboxes must be painted purple. Well, you're clearly not going to go back out in the community and make every single person paint their mailbox purple. It's all new mailboxes have to be purple. Well then, if their mailbox gets torn down and they have to put a new one up, does that new one have to be purple? That's the question. As you're replacing or expanding or making something new after this new rule, how does the new rule impact them? I wanted to think of something completely off the wall so I didn't get anybody concerned over what I was proposing.
And I think we have some of those issues going on right now in the county. You know, they're current. Those are current issues with the tornado damage and stuff. We got, you know, rebuilding going on, and that, and we don't have this land use, but we've got certain issues as far as if those buildings, when they go back up, if they meet the current standards or if they're grandfathered.
Right.
So what is it? Do you grandfather, if you're doing a new construction, shouldn't you at that time probably rectify some old problems?
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's the question we've kind of got in there. And I mean, there's an emotional issue and a financial issue as far as coming back up to the client, the requirements of new standards.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's a residence, whether it's a chicken house, or a poultry building, or whatever, you know.
And that's what, you know, one of the things that Max had brought up is that,
Well, you know, what I was looking at is like page 131. It says like the guy was grandfathered in. He had his trailer on less than an acre, and the new regulation says it's got to be an acre, and there's no way he can meet that. So therefore, they say his claim was that he grandfathered in, therefore he should be left alone. And they're saying no, you grandfathered in only guarantees you to be non-conforming, and we don't have to give you a variance, so we can tell you to move out. Is the way I read that. You'll have to look at that one, Tom. But that's what my concern was, that you say, okay, all this takes effect after December of last year or whatever. That way Travis don't have to go around measuring anybody's yard from the front porch on any existing building. When they get ready to add a new bedroom onto the back, he can say, no, you can't put it 10 foot from the road. It has to comply with the new standard on the back side of the house. But we cannot tell you can't upgrade your house because it was built in the 1930s and it's 2 foot too close to the road.
that
To your
is,
new standard. That's my issue there, that you put a date on it and say, if you were here before this, you're fine. And that the land use is actually for going forward in the county and not trying to roll back the clock on what has been put in place. And that's what I was looking at, is the potential to put a date on it. And that way Travis don't have to be the zoning Nazi on everything that's happened in the past. When they want a permit to add a bedroom on, you can say, okay, you're 2 foot too close here, but you got to stay away from your septic tank here, and you can't get on the well, and you go back here, but you can't add on to this existing house. Now, if it burns down, we can't let you build, 10 foot from the road again. But I mean, you look at a lot of houses, where the road was cut, and where Gumby lives down by you, and 20 foot from the road, you put a standard in saying they got to be set back so much. I'm looking for the guarantee that, and that's for Travis's benefit too. He just has to look at stuff going forward. You say everybody building has to come through him, and then he may have to spot check the place, but he knows what he's looking at. And anybody wanting to upgrade, they're already okay as long as it's an improvement that's in the appropriate direction. Is what I was looking at. I mean, that's the direction I was going, to give you my frame of reference. What I was.
In a lot of counties, and I think that's an excellent point about how you're going forward. That's exactly everything that whole non-conforming use issue, which is exactly what we were talking about. One of the things that I think you'll see on 131 is that I'm not sure if a county has the authority. I can tell you that no county takes the authority to go through and say, if you have to have an acre going forward and the guy only has a half acre, they're not going to kick him out.
Mm-hmm.
If he moves off and somebody else wants to move a trailer in there, mm-hmm. they might say no because you don't have an acre.
Yeah.
But when let's say he wants to build on and make that a more permanent residence, mm-hmm. he would have the right to come before the board and ask for a variance. Mm-hmm. And at that point in time, the board would not have to give him a variance. If you put in the variance language, you cannot force a board to guarantee a variance. Mm-hmm. So that's why that non-conforming language has to be so
well,
precise.
That's what I was looking at. If you got a date, then there's no question about whether a variance is allowed or not. It's already allowed.
Right.
Because it was built prior to this date, there's no question about it. You're still okay, and if you're upgrading, as long as you're upgrading in an appropriate manner, Travis come in and say, well, you can't make it out of cardboard boxes. You have to comply with what the newer standard is, but you can still add on to what you have, even to the point that if you wanted to add on to the mobile home and then take the mobile home out and turn it into so long as your distance is correct and that it is an upgrade rather than pulling in something worse or having to live in what's deteriorating down to a cardboard box. But I'm gonna have Tom looking at page 131, what I've referenced on what had me.
I just think that we're getting into a circumstance because we're going to pass the CFO and ag. I think it needs even an open discussion in the planning commission is that there is, what I understand in Clark County, you can help me out if you've heard anything different, but I've heard this in Clark County that they're going after mobile homes that's in this kind of like they call a storm corridor. That they're actually making them put stick housing up.
Storm corridor.
Yeah, they've got identified that there are storm corridors in southern Indiana. And you can see them down at the border. That get hit pretty regularly with tornadoes. That's been significant in the last 15 years. So they talked about Marysville being wiped out. They're not allowing any mobile homes to go back there. Yeah. The discussion is that it has to be a stick building with, some type of fortifications, you might say, because it's classified and it's come through FEMA as they're bringing their grant stuff in there that they're not granting for mobile homes to go back into that corridor.
But they're not forcing an existing mobile home to rebuild.
No. These are the ones that are completely gone.
Right. And that's what, we talked about. There was a lot of discussion about the whole 40-acre rule in our ag committee meeting, and that was just from Rush County, and that also includes housing in Rush County. So, for example, in Rush County, where you live, if you've lived there your whole life, If it's not on 40 acres, then that's a non-conforming use. If your house burned to the ground, you could not rebuild there. And so they asked, you can come in now prior to that incident and ask for the variance to be on the record before there was a tragedy, but not after there was a tragedy.
So you come to the board and ask for a variance of something that hasn't happened?
Yes, to be able to keep your home where it's at.
Well, that's what I was thinking, the date thing would take care of that, and you wouldn't have to, because that's the way I was reading it too, that you're existing right now, but you're non-conforming, and you have to come
Yeah,
admit that you're non-conforming and ask for a variance
yes.
to continue to do what you're doing.
It is absolutely forbidden. If your house burnt to the ground tomorrow and you're not on 40 acres and you're in A1 in Rush County, you do not rebuild unless you buy more ground. So that's why that language is so important. But that's, like I said, it was more of I just kind of want people to sit with that for a little bit, think about, because I know things kind of sit in the back of my mind. You got a few minutes, and then you might work on a different angle. So I want people to kind of.
I did have not being real familiar, not being at all familiar with the point system. It seems to me like that would alleviate that concern a little bit, because we're not so hard and fast on black and white criteria, but combinations of factors that might want to play. I get the point, but I also understand we don't make rules just to make rules, because lots of times there's safety issues in play. And if someone is 10 feet from a roadway where people are traveling 45 miles an hour, grandfathered or not, if that place burns down or somebody moves and someone else buys it, I don't know that it would be the right thing to do to allow them to rebuild 10 feet from the edge of the road where people are going 45 miles an hour.
Exactly.
People get killed that way.
Well, if it burns down, I can understand, I mean, you lost that aspect, but as far as, it's a 2-bedroom house and you want to add a bedroom on, you're currently non-conforming, you don't have to get a variance to add on to that. Even if you are heading towards the back end, and maybe even consider tearing off the front 2 rooms later on, so you are getting better on.
Let me throw a theoretical.
Okay,
I
go ahead.
wouldn't have a problem with that at all.
Well, that's,
And that's
I
what,
would,
yeah.
because we're adding on, if you're adding on to make.
yeah, if you track up towards the front, yeah,
From 10
yeah.
Okay.
The theoretical is you got an existing building that's within a certain distance, which is shorter than what your ordinance has.
Mm-hmm,
But it's been grandfathered.
mm-hmm,
So an additional building wants to be put on,
mm-hmm.
not attached to that, but one at the same distance as what the existing building. What do you think? Does it go in or does it not?
It needs to set back to the,
I think you would have to go to, if you're talking about a business, I think you'd have to go to the BZA with something like that and go on a case-by-case basis, because you could see where there would be business reasons why you would want to allow a variance under certain circumstances.
So we don't have a BZA.
Then the board would have,
Yeah.
whatever is functioning like that.
Well, we would go back to the commissioners right now, wouldn't it, Tom?
Seems to me that the commissioners have passed an ordinance requiring a 60-foot setback for structures from the center of a road. And it's their ordinance. And we don't have, I've never felt compelled to tell the commissioners we need a BZA because we don't even have a zoning ordinance.
Yeah, I don't.
And so we don't have a BZA. And so when something like this has come up, I've always called it the gray area. When we've had a plan commission, and then we've got laws that are typically planning and zoning type things, that Washington County is a little unique. We've been following some rules that are actually statutorily allowed. In fact, the statute may have been enacted because of Washington County. And then all of a sudden we switch gears and say, no, we do want plan commission, we do want planning and zoning. But we've already passed some statutes by the commissioners, like the subdivision control ordinance, for instance. We had some old ones. And so then the question becomes, okay, they passed it prior to the existence of a planning commission, who does that? So, I mean, just to alleviate any concern, we went ahead and took the several iterations of that ordinance, rewrote it, compiled all the pieces into one, and made a recommendation to the commissioners. They passed it last year. So now we've done it the right way through the planning commission, recommended the commissioner, we got one, and we, subdivisions come through the planning commission. I mean, that's okay, but
We got
some,
these.
there's all these, some of these other like setback things on the CFOs,
I don't think that your plan commission can, they are planning. I don't think, in an advisory board, I don't think that I don't think that you're allowed to grant variances. I think that has to be the governing body, and that would be a BZA or the commissioners, and I think with the absence of the BZA, I think it's pretty clear that that falls back to the commissioners. And it's all on your
There's
shoulders.
your answer.
Again, commissioners have a silly amount of power in our state. I just thought so.
It could be worse, it could be.
Swirling head over there, you
Going back to the ag issue, the point system, as I look at it, and as our discussion, we ended up with some discussion there at the very end. And you kind of helped me through this, Kerry. We ended up with the point system with some type of, some standards of the agricultural land, was any type of classification? I got the wrong notebook with me today.
Well, what I have that we decided hard and fast on was, number one, the intent statement, that we've worked on, which is just it's a mission statement, and I apologize, I can go out and get it, but it's what we want the ag zone, because there's only 2 zones in our current model, city and ag, city, not city going. And so that was one hard and fast, the mission statement, and then that, there's usually a set of standards that precede the point system. And we had decided hard and fast that rather than do the minimum acreage number, the minimum lot size, the minimum yard frontage, instead of all of those minimums, you decided to go with the IDEM setbacks as your minimum. And then all of your bonuses came later on your point system. And there were a few on the point system that we talked about specifically, but for the most part, it was just the 400 foot from residential housing, the IDEM standard point system, using the point system to increase the ability instead of a smaller lot. We were using that to fix the whole lot issue. Sure. But we did not have any discussions on the difference between tilled, wooded, or pasture ground or anything like that. We talked about using it for section density.
That's it, the density.
Yes.
Density was a key issue.
Yes.
We specified that certain densities was to dictate how that scoring system went with the setbacks. I think that's right.
Yeah, it was
Because it was site specific to densities.
that you wanted it weighted. So, for example, when you go through the point system, you wanted it weighted heavily on the section density number. That was the other note.
Yes.
Yes. I didn't realize that the section density was.
Are you familiar? Do you understand what we're saying about that, Tom? As far as densities, say that you take a situation where you're on Locknell Road, where you might have a larger density per square mile than what you would in Vernon Township. The setback distance would be greater in that area than what it would in Vernon Township.
So it would be greater than 400.
Correct.
Well,
Okay.
it may be greater.
Or could be, yeah.
Because of the, like you said, because you have to buy and bargain on points, the section density you would get so low, we would weight it towards the density issue to force them to buy points by increasing their distance.
The only thing about that is that you have someone that's out in Vernon Township is 400 feet, because
I think if you, in my opinion, once we get the point system lined out, it will, depending on, you can force it to where they just can't make it without the points, the extra distance points. And then, there's also, we talked about with the section density, let's say that, they're in the middle of the section density points, but half of those people are their relatives, and they don't care if they're there. There's some wiggle room on, if your closest neighbors, if that 400 feet, if they'll sign So I think that there's some ways around we're going to be able to force them to do things through the point system, but you can't you can't go out to the public and say, I guarantee you there will never be a building 400 feet from your house, because you never know what kind of combination people can come up. You see what I mean? Like, if you bought every house on the strip except for one, then the section density would be low.
But I think the section density kind of moves and migrates, while we're talking about site selection.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one key that we're looking at this is correct site selection. Of course, I can't say that 750 feet is a correct number. Where did it come from? We know it comes from a waste management type of scenario. We know that it comes from there. But can you in science tell me that 750 feet is safer than 400? You have a perception of that because you have a perception of the distance. With 350 more feet, that's got to be better than 400.
But if it's your house, really is the difference between 400 and 7. If you're truly against it and you do not want it there, the difference between 400 and 750, is that really going to make you feel better?
No, it won't.
That's why I think that when we put the things together in combination, yes, it is only 500 feet. They bought an extra 100 feet, but they also agreed to put in a tree line. You're never going to see it. There's, that's where I think does mitigating. If they truly, in my experience, whether it's a landfill, a CAFO, wind farms, if they truly do not want it, there's nothing you'll write in to make them happy. So do the best you can for the county as a whole, and let the individual cases shake out like they're going to.
I just wish there was a little bit more to our exercise to initiate an operator of a CFO to see the benefit of the tree fence or the green vegetation, instead of just saying, I can do it, and just be done just because I can do it. I think that allows, this point system allows a little compromising coming on from both parties. What's your thoughts, Shauna? You deal.
I probably have one of the toughest sites there is in Washington County right now, and it takes a lot of extra money to put those extra things in, but it's definitely worth it. And I think my neighbors would say that they can't even smell it most of the time, So I have another thought about some other things,
Yeah.
but I think they could.
Yeah.
You were talking about CFO and, if a tornado hits it or whatever, and how would we rebuild right there, or would we? And in that particular instance, if something does happen to a CFO or a CAFO with a natural disaster or fire or something like that, do they have to go back and fill out a whole other application
With
to
IDIM?
construct?
Usually not, because usually the manure storage structure itself, usually, in Indiana, the natural disasters cannot, or it's very rare for it to destroy the storage structure, because most of them are earthen pits. So if a tornado hits it, you just rebuild the section it hit. It usually doesn't tear a side of a lagoon out. Same thing with deep concrete pits. Or if it took the roof of your turkey barn and everything else, the ground is still there, and the ground is actually your manure storage structure. So you just put another roof over it. So the only time you would have to get a new approval through IDIM is if, number one, you change the location. So let's say that, the county says all conforming uses going forward, if it burns down, natural disaster, you have to comply. If you cannot comply with the new regulation, you would probably have to get a new IDEM approval because you would be changing where your buildings sit. As long as, I've got a guy that actually twice now, the building, he had a small nursery over a pit, that the whole building's been gone, but the pit's still fine. The slats are still there. They just rebuilds it back over. And he, it's the same storage structure, it's just new pinning essentially and a new roof. Does that?
That helps. I
Yeah.
was just thinking about that when you talked about that earlier.
Yeah, and what I was really concerned about was, if we, in our ordinance and stuff, do we want to make them move even though they're grandfathered? They've already been there.
That is the whole non-conforming, sit with that and get comfortable with it concept, because just like Tom brought up, is it really right to say, yes, rebuild that house 10 foot from the road where people drive like maniacs? On the other hand, if it's a business, if it's a livestock operation and they're non-conforming, number one, think of the worst operator in the county. Every county's got one. Do you really want that guy to have a whole blank check for non-conforming use? And then think about the best operator you got and think, really, do we want to make them move their building if they have to? So that's why I said, let's all start thinking about that non-conforming use now, because it's a huge question. And there may be two different classifications for a business versus a home because of the safety issues that you may not want to impose on a business. But the answer is only your county, your board needs to make the decision on non-conforming and whether or not you can move it after a natural disaster.
Yeah, right.
Sorry, I didn't-
That's not an easy answer. That's not an easy answer because I can play both sides of that.
Exactly.
When you had, just out of curiosity, when you had a fire, didn't you,
Yep.
last year?
And it was within the city limits of Salem.
Did that have any impact on your permit, or were you able to just
The
rebuild?
permit I could have built right back home. Yep, because we already looked at it, the idea, it didn't change the permit process at all. And it was within the city limits, and the city limits as an ordinance, there's no confined feeding operation. But there was nothing to keep it since it was already grandfathered in to keep it from being rebuilt right back up on the existing. Now it couldn't get expanded.
And that's one of the things, like in the IDEM language, and this is just for, again, thought processes, because they've changed some of their setbacks, most specifically that 400 foot from a residence thing is a new item for IDEM to be enforcing. There's a disclaimer that essentially says if you are expanding a site, as long as the newest structure meets the setback or is no closer to the non-conforming setback, just like you were talking, as long as your add-on doesn't cause a problem, then go forth and expand. But an old building would not have to comply with the 400 feet.
That makes sense to me. I mean, just because someone's adding on, it's not like, if the thing falls down or burns down or gets blown down and it's got to be rebuilt
You might as well rebuild it right.
in the right spot. But as long as it's there and they want to add on to the back, I don't think the fact that they're adding onto the back we should make them all of a sudden conform because it's a different structure.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem fair. It's non-conforming, it's going to be non-conforming, but eventually when it changes, then we'll
All
move
things
in.
come to an end.
All things come to an end, but I don't want to get people on technicalities,
Right.
it's,
So that's,
You're not making this any
well, I just want you to sit with it for a while. That's why you make the big bucks.
Well, I'm gonna triple my wages here. Well,
Let's get off of non-conforming use because it's an endless argument, and everybody, basically we're gonna make some drafts, we're gonna make a few attempts at it, and folks are gonna you know, we'll get the language right in the end, but it's going to take a couple steps to get there. The last question that I have is, actually, Jay Halchin asked me about current, like today, if you want to build a turkey barn, what do you do? And I did not want to answer it because, honestly, I'm not sure of your current process. Do they come to you?
Depends what the numbers are.
So if it's below numbers, build away, right? Okay. Above numbers, comes off to
Do
you.
ID footprint,
And
it
then
goes into the commissioners.
and then we bring it to this board.
Okay, I just want to make sure I've,
Well, the commissioners get notified by item, that it becomes we just let them know that they've got we have an existing ordinance. that
Now, they do have to get that permit from the
oh, the Rule 5.
Rule 5.
Yeah, soon as morning.
I just wanted to make sure. I didn't want to answer it wrong, so I want to double check.
Basically, if they're underneath the numbers, even if they're underneath the numbers, if they do the construction up and above, you know, the acre, is it acre or half acre? Rule 5.
Acre for Rule
Acre.
5.
If they disturb that, then they gotta go through that process.
Okay. And I'm sure he's aware of that. I think it was more just making sure that because you all are in this process, nobody wanted to.
The existing ordinance that we passed back in, it was.
The Shauna ordinance.
I was there too.
Thank you.
It was.
But I mean, it was passed, it was never looked at again until probably a year ago by me. You know, whenever I caught wind that people were, you know, we were up here meeting and I pulled it up and looked at it, and I couldn't remember how we drafted it. And sure enough, it said only if you have to qualify with IDEM does this ordinance apply. So anything below the
And I
numbers,
think I was the next one that challenged it again, right?
you're the only one that got called anyway. You're already over the numbers. And
Well, I really like to keep this, even though that we got a 750 in there, I would like to have some parallel with ID. You know, I don't want to reinvent the setback language and certain things like that. We can use IDM language as a base, you know, even for our numbers that we're trying to get below the IDM permit, use it as a base. And then we'll have our point systems to work on the base to get to a point where both sides can get to a point where there's some compromise.
The subcommittee agreed to that, but we gotta make that pitch to the whole planning commission, right, before we can adopt it.
Yeah, and I think the draft has a far way to go before we're ready to take it to the planning commission. And that's why no handouts until we're ready, until everybody's like, okay, yeah, we like this, I mean, we're gonna talk to them about concepts along the way, but the idea of the committee is, you know, to make sure that we get everything ready and then go before the whole board. And if they want to nitpick or if they don't like a major concept, then, you know, we might have to go back to the drawing board. But I don't think, given who's on the committee, I don't think that the planning commission as a whole is going to have a huge issue with the decisions you've made. I mean, I'm by no means asking you not to share documents. I just am not excited about going, well, this is great.
But, I mean, I understand.
Yeah, if I'm not-
Something's in a real rough draft stage, you hand something out and somebody else gets it, next thing you know, you've got a
Yeah.
public war. and you
Right,
know,
especially because that first draft had the 40 acres in it. Everybody gets wound up over the 40.
I tell you
In fact,
what.
you had 40 acres to build a house on in the town.
Travis,
Are you guys gonna try to keep the 3 different setbacks? Or are you gonna keep saying 750, or are we just gonna go with one? Or
I think it would, I mean, my intentions are to get back to more of a baseline. I would like to get more of a baseline, the IDM, and then build on the point system to increase.
So there'll be different ones, plus a point system where that can vary, so it'll be more complex.
Yeah.
You know, you'll have to carry a calculator.
kind of?
Well, hopefully, the way this process is, the scoring will already be done before it ever gets to you.
Yeah, the applicant should be able to provide you with the information. They should be able to say, this is how we scored it and this is how we got the data to get there. And then you can just verify that they didn't, for example, when they, my building's here, I draw a circle around it, it's a mile for section density, if they didn't count half the houses. You're just verifying the data they used. I certainly hope they don't expect you to go through everyone.
No, that's a good direction to go. That's good policy, and
Yeah.
it shows a lot of flexibility, so.
Yeah, I mean, it gives the landowners latitude to
Sure.
meet what our goal is, and that's proper site selection.
Nothing's black, generally nothing's black and white, and so if we've got a system that allows it, some wiggle, then I think it's good. I like the idea that you decided to do the point system, because that was something that intrigued me back when we were talking about the comprehensive plan. And Scott was saying, you guys really need to look into this as an option, and I thought that sounded, and it was in the materials, that sounded like a good idea, because we can change it down the road and add to it and come up, because there's going to be, I'm willing to bet there's options, there's variables that we aren't considering now that maybe should become a factor or consideration down the road.
I do.
To add points, take away points, whatever, as you implement something, actual usage is the best teacher. So we'll end up modifying it, I'm sure, but to start out with, I think it makes a lot of sense. And I think it's going to give us a lot more flexibility. I think the public will like it a lot better. I think you'll find ways to get there, more ways to get there. And just hard and fast rules, this one rule.
You can come to a
This
common
one
ground.
rule that you can't get around excludes you.
Right.
If there's other things we can do, then I think that's going to be more palatable.
Any more questions for Carrie? Carrie, you have anything else you want to add?
No, I hit my main points.
Okay.
I'll have a question. It's only loosely related.
Kansas.
I just got to thinking about the setback circles and all that stuff, and we need to keep in mind our water resources in the county. We're going to need to do something like that, because we're going to need to create a point system that discourages development within some defined distance of our water resources. Because you look at Lake Salinda and what agriculture's done to that water source for the county is bad. So we're going to have to take that into consideration too.
And that one's it's a slippery slope, because that's really protecting water is really an item. It's kind of in there. But there's some ways around it again that maybe we can work some things into the point system to encourage development in different areas of the township. There's a lot of ways, there's more than one way to skin a cat, and hopefully we can find a way to get that in. When you say, and also, do you guys have much groundwater issues? I mean, is water fairly readily available, or?
Are we talking about city limits or out the country?
Expansion.
Yeah, so for example, one of the things that I've seen is that you'll have to essentially prove that there's enough water there to run your farm.
That can be an issue.
Yeah, it can.
Well, there are parts of the county, though, they have to have cisterns because they
Oh,
can't
yeah.
get a well.
Hey.
And
Right here, at a hog unit, the 4 dry wells. Wasn't an issue where my dad's farm was, 2 miles just down the road. Old farmers come in there, he says, have you dug a well? Well, Dad said, what do you mean? We just drilled, got water. No, not the case. The 4 wells already had concrete in the ground. Big problem. Brought a witch in, we found water. About 100 feet away from the building. But, that's an issue there, of course. It seems like water is a magnet for growth.
Well, and that's what, there is a rule that protects smaller users from large water usage folks. So there is protection for homeowners where, let's say if you are a large water resource, it's usually with new wells. A lot of the older wells that would qualify, they don't have the data on. But if your well driller comes in and your well's of a certain capacity, even if you don't use it, if it has the capacity to do it, you have to register with Department of Water Quality and with DNR. And essentially what that means is if all your neighbors' wells go dry, you're forced to rectify that with them. And so that is some measure of comfort for those residents. But what I was getting at is if you have a rural water company that provides water, that may be something else in your point system, that if you're not using a well, if you have an additional water source, if you install a cistern, if you protect those well holders even more, that may buy you more points. But I don't know if that's
Well,
certain areas that's a big.
Well, I can
Dubois
see
County
it.
has rural water all the way through it because there's only 3 places to get water in the whole dang joint. I mean,
South Hillo had their wells go dry last year, a bunch of them. There's water and cows,
yeah,
and their well was deeper than the residents around.
really.
They still had water for the cows, but they didn't have water for the people for about a week or so until it rained, until it got replenished. But it is an issue where you can.
Yeah, there's areas in the county that it's an issue.
and there's maps that identify low groundwater availability. And if that's something you want me to explore, we can. I just usually local folks have a much better handle on. If
I don't say that it's been a real prominent issue, but it's probably there. It's probably something I would look at as we go along, implementing, you know.
We don't need to worry about it now.
We've got bigger fish to fry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? I had on here new business, Brad Harden request. That was your hypothetical story that we went through. We can't act on it, so that was your hypothetical story. I don't know if it'll come up or not.
Should he,
He probably needs to,
should just go to the commissioners?
I thought he was coming
he was supposed to. He was asked to.
Is he wanting to expand his
What he's wanting to do, he's got a temporary trailer that he's wanting to put in the side of an existing business. And this 3 office temporary trailer is classified as temporary, but he's digging footers to set it on. His current business is only 32 feet from the middle of the road to where he is, and he wants to put it right beside it. But he's not wanting to hook it up to septic, okay? But there is a sink, and there is a toilet in there, and, but he's not wanting to hook it up as of yet, okay? Our issue,
it's there.
you know, but, this is the thing, this is what Travis, and some of the things that Travis is having to deal with. And we got some issues that's gonna happen down at Pekin, with some rebuilding that are gonna bring new issues that we haven't been, familiar. But some of the problem is that our ordinances are not codified, that are concise documents that we know what we're dealing with in the county, with our ordinances, what's been passed by the commissioners.
We can't make a ruling tonight, but if you talk about another junkyard,
Yeah.
I think, my opinion is he should be allowed to place it, but he should have to take the stools out of the building.
Makes sense.
But
Make it a true office trailer.
that's a different issue, really. I mean,
With the sanitation.
because that's the sanitation, that's addressing the sanitation issue. The issue is the safety on the setback. He's got an existing building that's apparently 32 feet from the center of the road. He's bringing in another building and wants to set it closer.
Closer than the.
Or set it.
Okay.
He wants to be able to add more buildings. And think about that. If you extend that out into the hyperbole, then theoretically, if one single owner owns one non-conforming use, we can grant them a license, and if you've got a non-conforming use in a large piece of property, you can have, we can just keep adding, and extending the time down the road, because that existing building's been there 40 years. Now we're putting in a new one today, a new one 10 years from now, and they all get a B. Well, this is gonna go on forever, so that when that first one that's been there tears down, we say, well, he's got 3 others that are non-conforming. Of course, they weren't there. You see what I'm saying? I mean, if you think about this, if you start allowing additional units, then when that first one gets destroyed or rebuilt, instead of saying, okay, now it's time to conform, you say, well, wait a minute, I've already got one here, and based on that, you should allow me to rebuild this one here. And it allows that perpetuation of
Is there a
non-conforming
way
use.
to-
Follow me?
Is there a way to stop, the right ordinances to stop that perpetuation though? That you're only allowed one
Well,
variance
I think you go
for
back
the
to,
life of
I
the,
think you go back to Max's date,
yeah.
you know.
The way I always kind of looked at it,
That's what
I
I thought would take care of the most easiest thing, and then after that.
now this is just residential and this is attached structure. Just as long as the new structure, the new addition, was not farther than the grandfathered structure. Did I say that right? That the grandfather, yeah.
Was not any less compliant, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
It was not,
As long as it was even, you know, you had that exterior wall, and let's say it was 30 feet off, just as long as the next addition was either behind it or 30 feet or more behind it. Or from the
I don't have a problem as long as that's part of the same structure, but if we're adding additional buildings and creating new structures.
Is it gonna be attached to the other?
No. No, it's sitting right down there. I saw it, because after all this ended up, I saw it. It's down there in the parking lot, the old Kimball's plant. It's a Carter construction office, and it was sold at auction, and he bought it. And so that's the building that he's wanting to move, because I saw it down there the other day. And it's just a box office is what it is.
And you know, you're talking about parking too, you know, on these setbacks and that concern. Since it is not attached, you could also, I mean, you'd have to talk to Brad, but since he's got distance in between both buildings, if he would designate that area as parking, I'm just throwing that out there.
He's got, what I understood, he's got some other areas he could put, but this is his preference.
Doesn't the land fall off pretty steeply behind this building?
Well, it goes back for a little distance. The only thing is, and just not saying anything derogatory or anything, but he's got scales, the big scales, semi-scales in there that you have to go swing all the way over into the median of these other parking lots on the other side, come all the way across the county road, you actually go onto the scale street. And there, the scales is that close to the road. In there. I mean, he's got everything, his buildings and that type of stuff, pretty close to the road. I mean, it's really close. You know, and I've gone out there with trailers and people picking parts up and stuff, and, you know, honestly, when you step out, you better pay attention to where they're actually at.
You drive by there, that's,
Yeah, because, I mean, you could get zapped.
people are going 45 miles an hour, and business is being conducted not far off the.
Oh, yeah, I mean, you pull a trailer up there beside this building and you step off the wrong side, you know, and you're on the edge, you could get smacked. So there is a little safety issue. Now, whether they can get out and visually see, because he's got a lot of frontage, you know, out through there that you can see for quite a distance. But, you know, there's some issues out there. It's one of those things that just doesn't match up with anything to speak of.
Well, it won't make it look any worse than what it is.
I didn't go there.
Yeah. I don't know.
I'd like to have some move business like that move in next to you.
Well, the other thing about it, he does a big economic impact
Oh, yeah.
to the community
Yeah, it
too.
does a lot more than just, you know,
Oh, yeah.
cars.
Just services.
So,
Every county has to have one of those.
yeah. Okay, is there anything else? That was a little exercise for today. Anyway, because I think that, you know, I was surprised Brad didn't come in. Because he had Travis out there a couple of times, and Gerald Shanks went out there to look at the highway. Of course, Gerald looked at it from an aspect of, can you visually see traffic this way? Visually see traffic. Well, the building itself wasn't going to hinder any of that.
It's
Well,
like this, no.
sight distance. So as far as the highway department, it's okay. But this thing, we got this 60 feet ordinance that we've been implementing, enforcing. Fine.
Well, I just looked today.
Yeah, I know.
But I mean,
But, you know, this has been an issue with some of these rules and ordinances in there. They've been written, in fact, I remember some of them went all the way back to minutes.
I mean, and it goes in the, I mean, there's one in the subdivision code that we just passed.
Okay,
Subdivision
so
ordinance.
that's in there. So Travis has been enforcement as far as, you know, residences and stuff like that. He's been in compliance with what's there.
In the subdivision.
Yeah, in the subdivision.
So,
But it's not a subdivision, it's somebody just.
right, we don't need that.
Somebody just
Wouldn't,
like-
this goes back to something said earlier, but wouldn't Brad actually need to talk to the commissioners, though?
Yeah,
Yeah,
really,
it's
it's their-
Where we're at right now.
I mean, at
We
this
don't have-
moment in time.
Yeah, we don't have a BZA, so
Yeah.
it's not really for us to get a variance. It would be up to the BZA to do that, since we don't. And we're the acting agents of the commissioners. It goes back to the commission. Okay. Anything else on that?
Probably ought to let Brad know that, if he doesn't already.
Are there any new IDM notifications or CFO comments?
No, trying to think if we got any. No.
Is that your stomach?
He was jamming out.
It's a fairly distinct ringtone, I don't know that it's yours.
I had this thing on vibrate, I thought that was you. I guess I must have taken it off of vibrate.
You know what the next
I was like, I was gonna tell you to answer your phone. I guess it was me.
Well, Jeff Fleck, not Jeff Fleck, Terry Fleck said in the governor's office one day. And we were sitting in there, we were talking about CFOs and stuff like that. He's the executive vice president for pork producers. All of a sudden he goes like, Linda. So the governor walked out, and I said, what the heck is he doing? He said, walked up my phone on vibrate. And I said, well, where the heck did you
Did he get nervous or anything? I've never seen him any like
he
flapped at all.
He just jumped like that, you know, and it was unusual for Fleck to do that.
Yeah, he's very slick. That's
Oh,
why I was
yeah.
like, really? Did
He
that,
just did that.
ruffle his feathers on him? Wow.
So are there any new IDM notifications, CFO permits?
Just with the landfill, that doesn't have anything to do with what we're doing.
Okay. Remarks from the audience? Uh-oh. Are we exhausted tonight?
Yeah, we can't approve the minutes.
All right, so we'll do that part of the agenda items for next month.
Oh, I have one thing. Did you guys change your times from 6:30 to 7 on the ag meeting?
Yes.
Yes. That's what I thought, okay.
You
Because
can
that
give
just-
us the stick, I'm sorry.
That just hit me when you guys were talking, I almost forgot that. So we're gonna keep everything at 7 now?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
Oh, yeah, and as the expert, who is gonna win, Kentucky or Kansas?
Well, I was in my house. Bobby Knight is only second to God. So I really can't let UK win. There's just no way.
You fit in good with that. Well,
I can remember being screamed at that if I did not get out of the way of the TV, when my mom and dad were both, they were there when he threw the chair, they were there when he pulled the team off of with the Russians. Oh yeah,
I was there when he threw the chair.
really?
Oh, yeah, that was wild.
Purdue, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was Purdue.
Who was at the free throw line?
Season.
No, it's after that. Steve Reed.
Yeah, it was Steve Reed.
Yeah.
I loved it, I mean, because when they won the national championship, the last one, my mom is a huge fan. She's very country club, very together. My mom wouldn't say shit if she had a mouthful. I mean, she's, very, and she would constantly be yelling at the TV. And until the day I die, I'll never forget her going, "Smart, you dumbass!" Oh, she would get wound up in.
So with that, there's no other business. I look for a motion
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
to adjourn. Second. All signify by standing up and leaving.
I do have two quick things for you guys to save you some cash on a consultant, a little twofer here. You're getting ready to get a letter from the state about the new rule that's coming in July. They're supposed to be mailing it today or tomorrow. And essentially, it has this list of frequently asked questions, and they've already mailed the one to the CAPO owners, and they're wrong. The frequently asked questions are wrong. The things that they're saying that you have to comply with are wrong. I'm assuming they'll get those things fixed before they mail the second round out, but I wouldn't guarantee it. You guys don't